The question now, let me deal with substantive issues. You see, the EC, the issue about the independence of the EC, the membership of the EC, the composition of the EC, has also been here for a very long time. Indeed.
And the utterances of some EC officials.
Yes, I'll come to all those things. Even Afarijan. And as far as I'm concerned, his organization, mobilization, conduct eventually vindicated him and the process. But he was a target from the INEC days to the EC chairmanship.
He was deputy in INEC?
Yes.
Okay.
There was nothing like trust. You have to go back. Some of us were all included in the agitation because we didn't trust the INEC structure. And INEC, when it was dissolved and the EC created, you had a situation where some people in the INEC had become members of the EC. So there was still suspicion, lack of trust. David Kanga, that's the name.
David Kanga.
Kanga.
Yes.
He was in INEC. He and Afarijan became EC.
Yes.
The opposition parties were not happy with them and created a lot of problems for them, including us. Indeed, IPAC was formed as a way of trying to diffuse those things, bring about collaboration and trust. Even IPAC, you have to check, there were serious disagreements to the extent that there was a stage that even the NDC, which was the ruling party, boycotted IPAC. The opposition parties were insisting on even members of political parties being made members of the EC. Documented, this is well documented. I brought some of them here because we were looking at what happened in the Francophone nations when they were transiting to multi-party democracy. With the benefit of hindsight, I disagree with that. But I believe we were part of those who were agitating for such things. We used to hold, the first elections were held on 2 separate days.
Yes.
Parliamentary and presidential.
Yes.
At IPAC, we insisted that, look, fuse it. The NDC was opposed to that. But through consultation, collaboration and things, it worked. I think that IPAC has done a lot to help the parties arrive at the consensus we are, in spite of its challenges. Now, the question of membership of the EC, which Kwesi touched on and mentioned, I think, one name. He didn't mention the other name for whatever reasons. See, Randy, the seeds for this situation in which we find ourselves were sown when we were creating the EC. The EC, as you know, was created in 1993 by Parliament. See, I have a bit of thing that I want to read in full. It will take some 2 minutes. This is the Electoral Commission Bill presented to Parliament on June 18th, 1993. It was presented by Martin Amidu, then Deputy Attorney General. See, just listen to this. Mr. Speaker, this bill does not appear to state that the members of the Commission shall not hold office in any political party. This is provided in Chapter 19 in the case of the National Commission for Civic Education. In the case of the Electoral Commission, it is just stated that they shall hold office on the same conditions as justices of the superior courts. And even though under the provisions dealing with the judiciary, it is not provided that justices of the superior courts shall not hold office in any political party, members of the judiciary are by convention not allowed to hold any such office. They are also by convention not allowed to hold other public offices that could compromise their position as judges. And since the conditions of service of the members of the Electoral Commission are made identical with those of members of the judiciary, we assume that all the conventions and norms that govern members of the judiciary will equally be applicable to members of the Electoral Commission. We think that it was deliberate that the framers of the Constitution equated them with the Superior Court justices and intended that all conditions that apply to the judges should apply to them also. There was a suggestion that the members of the commission should be debarred from holding private offices and that they should not belong to any political party. On the issue of not belonging to any political party, it will appear that any provision of that nature will conflict with the Constitution, because it gives to every human being freedom of thought and expression and association. They may not overtly indicate their preferences, but they are entitled to have in their minds some leanings, but they are not supposed to hold membership cards or belong to a political party. I do not think it is appropriate for us to spell it out in the bill that they should not belong to any political party, because by so doing, it might appear as if we are taking away a fundamental human right from them. The convention of the office, just like in the case of judges, is that members of the commission are non-partisan. You see the philosophy that went into the bill that led to the creation of the EC. We treated them on the same level like judges. Check the judiciary over our history. There are political party members. There were former members of parliament. There were members of key executives of this administration who are judges, in spite of their political leanings, whether current or past. And I don't want to mention names, but I'm sure you know there are many, even under this Fourth Republic, former members of parliament across the political divide, former party executives across the political divide, who became members of the judiciary, that is judges, justices of the courts, from High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. You know what I'm talking about? This is the philosophy that the first parliament, in creating the EC, put in the bill and the memo. Same way, if you look at Teresa Cole, she was a member of the first EC. She was a founding member of the 31st December Women's Movement. Yet she was a member of the EC. And it is backed by this bill. My attitude is this: if we want to change it, let's change it.
What do you think, on the basis of our experience,
Yes.
and all the agitations? I mean, do you think that it's maybe the intention behind it, and it's good that we have this lesson, that, oh, look, the intent was this, but having practiced it this way, because somebody asked, for example, if tomorrow there are vacancies on the Electoral Commission, and we see that President Mahama has nominated Honorable Fifi Kwete or Honorable Asiedu Nketia,
Yes.
to go and chair the commission,
Yeah.
what would be the impression? What would be...
I'm glad you say impression.
Yeah, what would be the impression, one? What would be the level of mistrust that persons outside the NDC will have? What would be the perceptions and misconceptions that people will have about the commission?
Well, this is, you are inviting me into the realm of conjecture,
Yes.
speculation,
Yes.
and, perceptions and things. You are entitled to have those impressions. Here I'm dealing with a creature of law.
Yes.
And the genesis of that creature. And indeed, many of those who are making so much noise, some of them were sitting in this parliament. Some of them...
Maybe on hindsight.
Yes, so then there's a constitutional way of opting and taking that feature out. Can you do the same with the judiciary? Not possible. That because I was once a member of parliament of party A, and I've decided that, look, let me go for my profession, my professional pursuit instead of the political, I must not qualify to be a judge. How are you going to resolve that? And that is why here in this bill they did the equation. It's not my creation.
Maybe we can excuse judges, because you see, judges don't sit there only to deal with political cases. When it comes to the work of a judge, maybe the political cases even constitute 1% of what they do.
But they can still, the 1%.
No, I'm not saying that there is. I'm not saying that you don't have an issue of political cases, but I'm saying that when it comes to the Electoral Commission,
Randy, so how do we change it without reference to the bill?
We have to look at it. Yes.
So the point I'm making is that I get surprised when I hear people, some of whom were members of this parliament, and sat there and endorsed this bill and created the EC based on law, pretending that they didn't know the seats they were sowing, and also pretending that over the years we haven't had politically affiliated persons who have been members of the EC.
Okay. Can I?
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell your discussion.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, the conduct of 200 citizens, the conduct of 200 citizens out of more than 20 million citizens. You cannot hold 20 million citizens to the conduct of 200 citizens who were in parliament.
What do you mean?
The Kweku's argument simply is that he gets surprised when people who were in that parliament, who were 200, decided to do something which is today being criticized. There were 200 people who were entitled to their views. I'm sure that even within the parliament, it wasn't all the 200 who agreed.
There was no dissenting vote, though.
Okay, but let us assume that 200, you understand? That's a small section of the population. But be that as it's made, the issue of the independence of the Electoral Commission in 1991 was a subset of a general discussion about how to ensure free transition. Our position.
When you say our, who do you refer to?
I mean, those of us who are engaged in the struggle for the restoration of limited democracy and so on.
Right.
You know, our position, our issue, was that the PNDC could not supervise any transition. And for that matter, we needed an interim transitional arrangement which did not involve the PNDC. And we proposed that that transitional arrangement ought to be headed by the Chief Justice. Okay. So the arguments about the neutrality of the institutions that the PNDC set up and so on came from this grand argument about the PNDC being an interested party in the transition.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's important for us to look at it that way. Again, you ask very important questions. I mean, if tomorrow President John Mahama were to make some appointment to the Electoral Commission based on law, whatever, and then I have posed this question before, we were told that he had appointed Dr. Tony Edu onto the Electoral Commission. What will be our reaction? There will be total revulsion. Because the independence of the commission ought to be manifestly clear. You understand what I'm saying? Ought to be manifestly clear. So, no matter what the law says and so on, if the Electoral Commission is to be a referee in election, and it is packed with card-bearing members and so on, it does raise substantial. Pardon?
Card-bearing members, the plural. You are talking here of one person. As far as I know, you are talking of one person. That's why I gave you Teresa Kotu as an example.
Kweku, let us
was Bosman a patron of TESCON?
As far as I know, no.
That allegation
I don't know. I've heard it many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
That allegation has been made. But let's say that if card-bearing members of a political party are appointed onto the Electoral Commission, it does raise substantial issues about the extent to which it can be independent, the extent to which it can organize free and fair elections. And that's a fact. You understand? That's a clear fact. Now, the argument which Kweku makes, which is derived from the presentation which was made by Mr. Martin Amidu and so on, even in there, Mr. Martin Amidu makes a recommendation that members of the Electoral Commission ought to take the example of those who serve in the judiciary, yes, who are enjoined not to display their
yes,
bias.
That is, once you are appointed,
yes,
you are expected to actually conduct yourself in a non-partisan manner. But your previous political alignment and affiliation does not constitute a disqualification for that appointment. That is what they themselves said. And that's why...
By they themselves, what do you mean? I'm making an argument that not Martin, I mean, so
no,
they themselves does not apply.
No, it's because you made reference to it.
I'm making reference to it to the extent that the proposal came from Martin Amidu.
No,
and
from
Martin
the
Amidu himself,
from the government.
whatever. The government then even saw the need to insulate the commission from partisan considerations and so on.
Yes,
it's
you know
that.
what is interesting?
Yeah.
The interesting point, and I've raised that issue too. Whilst in the Constitution, when it came to NCC, they put it in there.
Zero.
Yes, that you shouldn't have any political affiliation.
Hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
But read the first line I read.
Yeah.
So why is it that when it came to the creation of the EC, all of them said this should be the line? And what the caution they were given is that once you become a member of the EC, you are expected to discard your political affiliation. Same, that's why they reference the judiciary, that people could have political past, association with political parties and traditions. But once you are appointed a judge, and it's true, it's part of the code, you, the judge, you are supposed to take yourself out of your political realm. You are supposed to judge matters on evidence, law, and facts. That's what you are expected. Because in any case, don't you see that they were even talking about it would be a violation of your right to assembly, expression, and association.
But that's a problem.
That's a problem.
It's a problem to the extent.
If you want to re-engineer it, go by the
So
law.
Kweku, your point is that, Kweku, the point you make, let me just understand something. The point you make is that, look, the law setting up the issue of the Electoral Commission and its appointments.
Yeah.
And in fact, what went into the enactment of the law?
Exactly, ma'am.
What went into the
The
enactment of the
philosophy
law?
that went in.
Envisaged people with political leanings being appointed.
Yes.
And it didn't have the spirit behind the law. They didn't have anything. In fact, the spirit and the letter, they didn't have any problem with that. What they wanted was a conduct post appointment.
Yes.
And so you think that if 3 decades on, we think that it is a problem, we must first of all admit that the law allows for it.
Yeah.
Having practiced the law for, let's say, 3 decades, we think that it's an area that we need to take a second look at.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the point you're making.
Yes,
you are not saying that you have a problem with anybody who thinks that we should change.
But how would I have a problem with anybody who has a different view? I mean, that will not make me what I am, what I've always been. Okay? But isn't it interesting that when it came to the NCC, they were so positive whilst they were dealing with this matter. But when it came to the EC, they did a balancing act and said, look, your right to have political leanings and things is established, except that when you get in there because of the convention with judges, that they did the linkage. Judges, we all know, once you become a judge, and we have many.
Maybe they didn't expect that. They didn't expect that subsequent governments will perhaps look at
their own
let's
government.
Say,
that government had already appointed.
Let's say, let's say political party communicators who perhaps rapidly go, for their party and all that. They didn't envisage that maybe we'll go that route.
That's a mischief that has occurred in the evolution of the constitutional democracy dispensation. There could be a cure for it.
Yes.
Still legally.
Right.
That's my view.
Okay.
Okay.
Specific. Let's wrap up on this so Kweku can finish.
So I can't.
Yes, on this EC one, then Kweku will come back to you.
So the point I'm making.
Okay, let's see.
Yes,
no problem.
Kweku, go on.
Yeah. The point I'm making is simply this: that independence ought to be demonstrated clearly.
Yes.
And that there are things which take away that perception of independence.
True.
Now let us even assume that Kweku is right, okay, and that the law does not frown on people who are appointed onto the commission having had a political affiliation past and so on. Let's agree that that is right. Is it wrong for others to see that that could constitute a problem and to begin a campaign to change it? Because to change it means that we have to discuss it first.
Yes.
Yes.
Bring out the problems and so on.
Yes.
We need to bring that out in order to be able to change it.
Of course.
You understand? Now, I would find it exceedingly strange if anybody thought that there was nothing wrong with appointing clear, politically affiliated persons onto an electoral commission. I find it strange that anybody would say that. Beyond that, if you look at the role of the NCCE and the Electoral Commission, which of them ought to demonstrate more independence? That's the role that the
Electoral Commission.
The Electoral Commission.
Yes.
You understand? So if even for the NCCE, we had to take measures to enact laws.
The bar ought to be higher for the Electoral Commission.
So that's what they should have done from day one, because they recognize the NCC, as you are saying, and yet they actually bar them from political.
I'm sure on hindsight, some of the people would recognize that, look, you can't raise the bar this high for the NCC and lower it for the Electoral Commission.
They did it at the same time.
Yeah.
They created the two bodies same time. And yet, this is how they went about it.
Right.
And I'm saying, if it comes to the membership too, again, we have history of people politically past political alignments being appointed to the EC. It's also not new. Now, see, that's why I started by Afarijan being a point of vindication. Afarijan, if you read Kwame Nahoy's book carefully, Kwame Nahoy makes the point why he went lobbied for Afarijan because of his political orientation, pro-Nkrumah orientation. That's why they got Afarijan to join the committee of experts. That was his view. And then also INEC. So Afarijan, when he was being tapped into the system, the people who were doing it looked at his political orientation.
According to Professor Hoy's book.
Yes, and he's not somebody you can underestimate.
Of course,
black and white.
Of course.
Okay, I have known Afarijan for years. I never thought about that till I read Kwamna saying that. It surprised me, but that is his view. And indeed, he was there. Afarijan moved from the committee of experts to the INEC, and then from INEC to EC. But his conduct over a period, and there were mistakes too under Afarijan. So it was a target, even for parties across the divide. But eventually, his experience, everything showed that, look, in spite of one's political past, you could end up being a good referee,
right,
within the context of our electoral processes.
Right.
So he's virtually an institution, a very credible one. Kanga, he was a member of the Justice Adnan-led NCD, National Commission for Democracy, and Kwesi knows what body did. Okay, I have all the documents, I have the resolutions and everything. Kanga too was moved from there. Indeed, there are people who suggest that he was even a kid and became INEC. INEC to EC. Totality of his stewardship, for me, vindicates him. He didn't come doing all sorts of things to manipulate the system. Okay, after all, they were in charge when the qualitative transition happened in 2000. They were there. They couldn't change the course of history. So if we want, and you summed it up well, if we think this is a mischief that needs to be cured, let's take it to the table where we can interrogate issues properly. Okay, so that's my view.